Friends, in today's video,
Why are you talking like that? Weirdo. He's a weirdo, boy.
Here's the cabinet.
Okay, you want to get out of here?
Welcome back. In this episode, we'll be building the drawers. As you can see here, I didn't have the most elaborate plans, so I kind of had to go with the flow. Originally, I was thinking on building a sliding shelf that would be just a piece of wood that would slide on a wooden rail. But as you can see here, I kind of struggle with it a little bit, making sure everything is level and the equal distance apart from each other while still being perpendicular to the wall behind it was a bit of a challenge. But that wasn't the main challenge, as I would soon find out. We'll get to the challenges later, but for now let's focus on the wooden rail. As you can see here, I'm doing one above and one below. The idea is to have two drawers, one on top of each other, and to be able to put my basic cans and maybe some oil type containers. Keep things that are not the most sightly out of sight. I still think the idea was pretty good. Maybe the execution could have been done differently, a little bit more efficiently and cleanly, but that's okay. As I do different things, I learn, and the more I do something, the better I become at it, so I'll mark it as a lesson learned and improvement in the future. The wooden rails were good. I think the idea was great. The challenge is that the friction of wood against wood is not good, especially as you start putting heavier items on the shelf, and that's what I ended up finding out. I found a way to mitigate that so that I wouldn't have to actually get the official sliders, and we'll cover more on that when I start building the actual drawer itself. But for now, let's transition to the fancy soft close cabinet. Looking back at the project, this is a section that I struggled with the most. Aligning both sliders together was about an impossible feat. It seems straightforward. Make sure everything is level and make sure that they're the same distance from each other all the way through, but somehow they got warped and misaligned and they wouldn't really close properly. Somehow the soft close portion of it was binding and not allowing it to shut all the way. I actually ended up removing the guts of the soft close material so that I can get the slider to work. It was a very painful, frustrating experience. Don't know that I want to do it again. The wooden rails were not very modern, they were not very sleek, but they were functional and very forgiving. Wood is fine, you can realign it, you can add more wood, and maybe it's not the sleekest thing, but it works. With these sliders, it was a really big challenge to just make them work. In the future, I might try this again, but I might try to stay away from the discount 1x4s. I found that they were very warped. I should have done a better job selecting them at the store, but I was kind of working with garbage from the get-go, so that doesn't help at all. My biggest lesson learned is don't try to do this during a lumber shortage crisis, and if that's the case, then well, I'll be prepared to spend a little bit more to get actual straight lumber. The entire project was done with 3 4x8 foot sheets of 3/4 inch plywood. I was on limited supply because those were the last 3 that were on discount. Menards was out of stock otherwise, so I was kind of selective from the get-go about which cuts I would make, making sure that I would waste the least amount of wood possible. And that's what you saw me doing here in the drawers. You saw the first 2 of them I actually used plywood throughout, and the last 2 I only used plywood for the base, and then I used 1x4s as the side support. At this point I got kind of burned out of the drawers, so I decided to build some flashy trim to really make this look like a finished project. At this point, I've been working on the project for about a week and a half, really pouring my heart into it, and I didn't like the idea of putting that much effort behind something and having it look unfinished. You saw the 1x4s had a lot of screws and different types of holes, and it didn't look very good. So I wanted to make sure to finish it up, so I cut some oak plywood strips to make sure that everything looked even, and I attached them to the table using both wood glue and brad nails. And here you see me build the budget drawers. Notice the plywood base and the 1x4 sections on the sides. I don't know what they're actually made for, but I found some little sliders, these little wheels attached to the bottom of the drawers, and it allows it to slide back and forth a lot easier than if it was wood on wood. I added a block of wood to the rail to prevent the slider from allowing the drawer to go all the way back and falling off of the table. It also provided as a guide so that the back portion of the drawer is sliding on the wheels and the front portion is sliding on the block of wood itself, so that keeps it pretty level as it's going back and forth. I also added a screw to the frame of the table slightly above the drawer, and that keeps it from actually being able to be removed, and also secures it so it doesn't slide fully out or make a mess all over the place. And here we do some of the finishing touches, make sure that we remove any burrs from the edges, smooth everything out, sand it so that it's smooth, add a protective coating, and start using it as a workbench. There's still a lot more that I want to do to it to make it really stand out as a unique piece, but the core purpose of me doing this was to add some more functional space to the garage, and I think that's mission accomplished. We'll see this winter if I have some downtime. If lumber prices are lower, I'll make some fun things, including a dust guard for the miter saw. I'd also like to make sure that I had an extension to the table such that when the miter saw is in the down position, I have a continuous table. Really looking forward to those little side projects, but I'll call it completed for now. I hope you enjoyed the series. It was a lot of work, but also a lot of fun to make. Stay tuned for future projects.